story, and even character voices that pop out at just the right times that inspire giggles and laughter and emotion and really help kids connect with the story, as far as comprehension, as far as emotionality, and as far as just honestly enjoying the joy of a read aloud. So, Novel Effect iOS app, Android app, now available on Chromebook and coming soon. I heard there's a rumor that it will be available on the web too. So it'll be available everywhere.
That's excellent. Well, I think without further ado, we need to bring on the star of the show, Janet, and let her share her wonderful work. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. Excellent. And Janet, thank you so much for being here with us today. Why
Well,
don't you
hi,
take us through
everyone.
it?
Oh, well, I'm excited to be here tonight. This is, I thank you for this opportunity to share, because hopefully tonight you're going to be able to see my love for literacy and my passion for technology come together. So it's one of those things that I use both of these tools. I encourage all of my teachers in my first job to do that. And then I also teach at our local university. So I'm training pre-service teachers, and these are definitely two tools that we use a lot in that class, because I want them to carry it forward into all of the schools that they go to in the future. So it's one of my favorite things to show them Novel Effect in one of my first classes, because it reaches out and just grabs them from that first minute, and they know that the rest of the semester is going to be great after that. So if we can go ahead and flip there, David's going to help me out and flip for me tonight. I cannot start without saying that I'm so excited that Book Creator and Novel Effect have just become best friends, and that I get to be a part of this. So the second that I talked to David about the possibility of this, I was like, you have got to get Novel Effect, because it is so good. They go hand in glove together. And so tonight I'm going to share my story about how we actually do this in my school system. We've kind of tried it out, and how it's kind of grown over time, and hopefully inspire you to use it in your school with your teachers as well. So being a good teacher, I can't just jump into the what without telling you the why first. So that's one of those things where I need to start here, because this is I just completed my 25th year of education, and I've been in the elementary setting that entire time. And so one thing that I have found over time to be true is that educators all agree on one thing: our plates are full, and people continue to put things on the plate. However, it's very rare that anybody takes anything off the plate. And so we all agree that they hand us this list of standards, and they say, hey, you need to cover all of these, pace it out, get it done. And you're going to need to do formative assessment. And don't forget the student engagement aspect. Oh, and by the way, differentiation, do that too. It's just all of these things that they keep going, and they're saying, use the digital component, and then don't forget your stations. You got to keep those running while you're doing your small group table over here. And it's just this cycle that keeps going and going and going. And so after 25 years, I've just decided there is no such thing as balance. I've been looking for it for 25 years, and I hadn't found it. So I'm just declaring today that there's no such thing as balance. Because when I look at this picture of myself trying to run on that ball, that's how I felt. I feel like that as a teacher. And then just when I get that down, my heart rate's already up, but somebody starts throwing in some other balls, and I have to start juggling those. And just when I get to where I'm able to do that, they throw in another one. And so I, in my position that I work in, think it's better to frame it up a little bit of a different way. So with that, I would rather think not just one more thing to do, but kind of tweak what we're already teaching. And so I think that we should trade that word balance for blended, because when I'm juggling balls, if I drop one, you're going to know it immediately. You're going to be able to spot that. You're going to see it. However, if I'm painting and I'm taking all of those things and just kind of blending them together, taking that traditional teaching piece and adding in that digital learning component, I can throw in my personality there, put a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And if I mess up, not many people know, I just kind of blend it in there and it becomes something beautiful. So that is the why behind this, because we got to figure out a way to make this work. All right. So with that, we are going to go forward and we're just going to kind of jump in and let you get to the beginning of this story. The story started in my position as technology innovation specialist. I always start with a target. And when I'm talking about this balance versus blended idea, I want to try to get something that's familiar to the teachers. The last thing they need is something else to do. All right, so that's off the table. So I always try to look at, we need to cover the content. We have these resources available. We do want the student engagement there, because we know if student engagement's there, achievement's going to go up. But it needs to be something that they're comfortable with, something that they're probably already using. Thus, that is where novel effect came in. So one thing that teachers love, regardless of what age group you teach or what content area you teach or what age you teach, we are all reading teachers. It doesn't matter. Your social studies content in middle school is coming through text. Your science content through text. So we are all reading teachers. However, there is nothing that an elementary teacher loves more than a good book at the carpet with her kids. When I first became a teacher, I started thinking, okay, what was it that is my favorite memory as a student? And it was going to the carpet to listen to a story with my teacher. And so that was one thing that I said I will always keep, regardless of what they put on my list of things to do. I'm keeping that. And I did that when I was in the classroom. And so when I saw novel effect, I thought, this is it. This is the magic that I've been looking for. And so it's so funny because I went to school in the fall, and pretty soon I had an office full of adults, and I was reading picture books to them out loud with novel effect. It was hilarious. There were no children involved, just adults. But with every single person, we saw the same reaction. And so our reading specialist, she and I worked closely together, and we decided that we wanted to kick this off in our school. And so this is how novel effect entered the scene at Highland Park Elementary School. All right. So we knew that Talk Like a Pirate Day was coming up. All right. If you'll flip there for me, David. And I went on novel effect and I looked and I wanted to read How I Became a Pirate, but there was no soundscape for that. So I had followed Catherine Cole, who works for Novel Effect, and I messaged her on Instagram and said, Catherine, this is our idea. This is what we want to do. And she sent me a message back and she said, that's a great idea. Let me talk to my people. And it wasn't very long till she messaged back and said, we're doing it. So they actually created this soundscape for us to kick this off. They didn't know we were kicking it off, but and then just a few days later, she sent me a note that said, hey, I'm working on the activity pack for it. So we were thrilled with this. And that allowed us to go ahead and get our plans together. My principal, this is him, Dr. Ponders, and he dressed up like a pirate, which is very uncharacteristic of him, by the way. I just want to say that. He would want that disclaimer given. But we were able to bring in the kids class by class. We mic'd him up, hooked it to the Bluetooth speaker, and he shared Novel Effect as the very first person in our school. And so it was so special to have him as the leader do that. And then we were able to send out the activity pack to our teachers following that up. All right, so fast forward just a little bit. Now that we've kind of did the rewind, let's go a little further. The next month, I went into the classrooms and kind of modeled a little bit more. I read Stella Luna and Room on the Broom with the kids, and I wanted a follow-up activity. So while I read it with Novel Effect, I then had them go to Book Creator, help the teachers set up their classes, and all we did was one collaborative book. And each child just put a video of their response on a page. And that way, it was a class book. They could go back and watch each other's, which was their favorite thing to do, by the way. And it was just, I knew that this was a good thing, but we needed to up the game a little bit. So in December, fast forward a little bit, our teachers, we have it in their hands, and we started creating book boxes. So the reading specialist, Cassie, and I, we sat down and we were like, we want to give a gift to our teachers. And so at Christmas, Novel Effect had a season's reading campaign that they were doing. And we bought picture books that were related to that campaign and put them on the table in the teacher's lounge, and they could just come and grab the books. And so I started putting the QR code for the soundscapes in the cover to make it easier for them. And we noticed a lot of activity in that box. They were constantly cycling in and cycling out, and it was all the teachers. So they might be making a reindeer ornament, but they wanted to turn it into an educational activity. So they came and grabbed that book, and that way that meshed them together. So we started doing the boxes. So we started at Christmas. We turned that into a winter box. That box changed into a spring box that you see here. And then we got to an end of the year box, but we needed to power it up just a little bit. So while we were putting the activity plans from Novel Effect in their hands, in my job, what I do is I package things together for them, other resources. And so I started creating a hyperdoc that had all different kinds of activities where I curated just from different places. So for example, giraffes can't dance. I would put in the Novel Effect link for them, but then I might put in a Voki link because you can make a giraffe avatar. So that became a point of view activity. And then I might put in a seesaw activity, just a whole list of things. So we wanted to power up the follow-up activities. In our school system, we've been working in our leadership team reading John Antonelli's book called Powerful Task Design, And so in that book, he says that you do not know if a child got it unless you put an articulated task in their hands, because they could just be taking up air at the carpet. There's no proof until you give them a task. And so with our Power Up plan, that's what we did. We took the idea of Novel Effect and the idea of Book Creator, and we married the two. And that was going to allow us to do a few things. So if you'll flip over there for me, it is going to allow us to do that connected practice. So after they leave the carpet, they go back to their desk and they work on something. They show us what they know. We wanted something engaging for the kids. We needed to up that rigor, and we wanted powerful student feedback. And this is what happened. So I went back to that same idea, and we were talking about earlier where you take the books that they're comfortable with. We had already put the QR codes in the front of the book for the teacher access, and I knew that we had access to Book Creator. And I was counting it up, and I think I've been using Book Creator for probably 9 or 10 years, because I used it in my previous job, and I've been at this one a full 8 years. So I'm pretty close to a decade now. So I knew that there was power in that, but I needed to tweak it just a little bit. So the next thing that we did was we went back to that idea of something they're comfortable with. While Book Creator is very easy to just click a button and have an immediate book, there is something that is intimidating about a blank page to teachers sometimes. It throws them for a loop. They think, I don't have time for that. But I knew that with a little bit of structure, because Teachers Pay Teachers is a multi-million-dollar company. So I know that it's not just our teachers in our building that love it. They were comfortable with that. So I took that idea, the powerful tools of Book Creator, and this is what happened. So this looks like a lot. This is a sample book. So this is one that I created for The Good Egg by Jory John. And in here, all this is text, shapes, and a little bit of clip art. That's all it is. And then I added in my teacher know-how, my content standards, and a way for them to give us feedback. And that is how this was born. And so we just kind of took a little bit of time and started playing around with things just a little bit. Now, this particular one, you have to realize I am in a setting with grades 1 and 2. So we're talking about early learners here. So I needed it to be something that was doable for them. In the scrambled eggs page, that is a sequencing activity. So all they have to do is just drag the clip art to the right sequence. So what I did is I went in and if the teacher needed me to, modeled how to do this. I pulled it up on our front board and did it with the kids, but they had hit that remix button. So they all had it on their Chromebooks as well. So they were able to do it with me. The main character, this is a really good one to try it out on to teach them the tools because the main character is an egg. You can't really mess that up. All right. There's no intimidation in like some intricate character that they have to draw. Everybody can draw an egg. So that was quick for me to show them how to do the tool. And once you show them, you only have to show them once because they will take off from there. And then I put the little clouds there so that they could put in character traits. And then we went to compare and contrast. So again, because they were early learners, I chose to go ahead and kind of scaffold that for them and put the answers underneath so they could just click and drag them up to the right place. And then the problem and solution is probably their favorite because they have a lot of choice here. They can draw, they can type it, they can record their voice, but 9 times out of 10, they're choosing the video. They're making a video of themselves. They are going to resize it and then drag it up into into the appropriate box there. So this is one of those things where I didn't know if it worked, but I sure was going to give it a try. So when I had them hit that remix button, they lit up. They were all about it. They were here for it. So, and one thing I want to say right now about the leveling up, and it's okay, that's okay that you flip. One thing about this is that in that plus button, that magic button with all those tools, that more section is powerful because of your partnerships with Canva. You've got those animated emojis in there. All of those things are drawing those kids to that. So you hooked them and you don't really even have to try hard. All right, so if we'll flip on, keep going here. One more time, because I want to share this part. So the title of this is Unlock the Magic. And we had this idea that we wanted to share with the kids and the teachers. We had already introduced novel effect, but we wanted to kind of push up this powered up task. And so it was in the springtime. St. Patrick's Day was coming up. So I called a friend of mine who has the best personality ever. And he agreed to be our guest in our school and dressed like a leprechaun. And so Ishi the leprechaun entered the scene. He came that morning and read How to Catch a Leprechaun to the kids. So everybody got to see him at one time. But then we followed up with classroom visits. And you can see in this picture here, he gave each teacher a colorful balloon of the rainbow, and attached to it was a scroll. And this is a picture of what was in the scroll. So we were establishing a challenge for our teachers where if they read a book from the spring box with novel effect, and they did the remix of Book Creator and tried out one of the templates, they would earn the little card in the bottom left, which is a gold scratch-off card. Who doesn't love a gold scratch-off, right? Each card had a 4-digit number underneath the scratch-off, and that could be the lucky combination to the treasure box. There's only one treasure box and one lock. And so they didn't know who was going to win. But if you'll flip just a second, you will see this was a very exciting day at our school. The kids were all about it. They loved it. Ishi the leprechaun was in full character, climbing on top of tables, knocking on the doors, I mean, the whole thing. And the teachers accepted the challenge. So what happened was when the teacher would read the book, in the back cover, and if you'll flip, you'll be able to see it there, I chose to do a gold coin. And on that gold coin, they related that to the leprechaun, but it has a QR code. And when our kids are very familiar with QR codes. So they pulled up their QR code readers. We allowed them to scan it. And what they found, if you'll flip one more time, is the remix of the book. And so each one was different. Well, it did not take long for them to realize that with each book, there was a QR code. Until one day, I got a call from a teacher and she said, Miss Burnett, we just read this book and there's no QR code in the back. And I was like, yeah, I didn't make one for that. But buddy, they were looking for it. So I knew then that we had something. And so all the students had to do was hit that remix button. And it's so simple to do this. They then chose their classroom that had already been created in Book Creator when I read Stella Luna. They hit copy. So now teachers are not having to spend their planning time at the copier anymore. So that was a win for them. And just in as quick as they clicked that button, it made their own copy and put it in their classroom library. So all they had to do was hit that word go on there. And then it makes a copy of that book with their name underneath. And that pencil in the middle, that's the magic. That's waiting for them to edit it and show what they know. And that is the beautiful part of this, is because it can become anything they want it to be. It differentiates for each student because you have all of those things, like they can speak and it turns it to text. They can make a video. So even your youngest learners can do that. So we saw immediate student engagement in this. They couldn't wait. And the funny part about it is every book is different. So it's covering all kinds of different skills. They don't really know what skill it's going to be. So that shows us whether they know it or not. It's just those same skills that keep repeating over and over and over throughout the year. And so we saw student engagement go up. I love it because every student had a voice. The quiet ones, the ones that always have their hand up on the carpet, the ones that struggle and need a little bit more time, and the gifted ones, they could go ahead and make it great. So it really did a good job with that. And the feedback was amazing because if you give them a blank box, it's really hard to fake it, right? They cannot, circle A, B, or C on that. They got to give you something. So it's easy for us to identify as teachers whether they got it or not. All right, so we'll flip on over and I'll show you just a couple of samples here. This was Smart Cookie. We chose to do this one. I used Canva to create the cover of this one. Threw in a little bit of clip art there. This particular one doesn't do sequencing. It does summarizing, making connections, and then it also asks the kids to tell what they learned from the story. So this, you can see all of the skills that we have to cover in that K-5 literacy component have been worked into this. All right, if you'll flip again, I've got a few more examples here. In this particular one, I've learned myself as I've started creating these because everybody finishes at a different pace. But this, I added an if you finish early activity. So in the story of the Smart Cookie, we know that he trades his anxiety for excitement when he learns he can write poetry. So at this point, I used the hyperlink button in the text feature to link it over to Giggleverse so that they could go out and read some poetry and begin to develop a love for it. But then just underneath that, I knew that Read, Write, and Think had a template to help them make their own poem. And I wanted them to be able to do it independently because their teacher was over at the small group table. So I've tried to think as a teacher, I need them to be able to operate this by themselves while I'm working with some other students. And so that was kind of my thought process behind this. All right, we'll flip on. I could keep going for days, y'all. It's just been so fun. I put this picture in here because this is what, as I walk down the hallway, this is what I see. The kids have those books. The teachers already read it to them, but they want to go and grab that book. They want to use that text evidence. They're looking for a deeper dive there. And this particular picture, we had a student that moved in from a different country, and she spoke very little English. So the ability to translate was awesome in this capacity because another student was able to show her how to pick this up so quickly. And that let me know that this was very doable for anybody at any time when the kids were teaching each other. All right, so we'll roll on. This is, I think, Kathy, I saw you hold this book up a little earlier. Dragons Love Taco, this kind of came in with Cinco de Mayo. And I wanted to share this example with you guys because I always try to get the teachers to make me a co-teacher so that I can go in and look at their work after they do that. But this one had the story elements, but it was this picture that caught my attention because if you'll look at it, there is so much detail in this picture. But this student, super smart because they used the emojis to go and give them the main parts of it, and they drew around it and added on top of it the details. Y'all, they are so good. They are great at this. And I love this one too because I added a little part here at the bottom for them to explain why it was their favorite. So I needed them to give me some supporting details here. And when I listened to their voice, the detail that they gave, like the fries were soft, so they were easy to chew. What? You're in second grade. And then another thing they said was, I really like the cheeseburger. It has all these delicious things, and they listed them, but the onions are chopped up really small, and they are the tastiest part. And I was like, if I had given them a pencil and a worksheet, I never would have gotten that. So not only is that details that they're giving them, but at any time, that helps me form a relationship with that student. So this is just compound, everybody has that voice, that differentiation component is there. If they're not great at drawing, they can use the emojis. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. All right, so we'll flip on because my teachers really started taking a part in this. And the thing that I loved about it is I sent out an email and I said, hey, what books do you read every single year to your students? What is it that you're gonna read that book to them? And they started sending me lists of books that are their favorites. And so I got busy and I started creating these to go along with all of those books. So this one is Clark the Shark. And this particular one has retell in it so that they can retell the story, problem and solution. What I do is I read the book first as a teacher, and then I'm able to pull out the skills that are in that book. So this one rhymes a lot. So I thought this is the perfect time to put in that rhyming activity for them to identify those words. And if you flip on over, you'll see I loved this part. I always teach my students about I fake text message, which is that real world connection. And I use I fake text message to create a text message between the characters, but they have to draw conclusions to figure out whose phone it is. So that's one of those things that is very appealing to them because it puts up their curiosity. And then on this one, I added an if you finish early activity. And because you can embed in Book Creator, I put in a 360 video so they can swim with the sharks and keep learning as they go. And because I did this, then I figured out, you know what? I really kind of need them to leave them a space to create. And so I put this show what you know. It's kind of like an exit ticket at the end, and they can use words, they can use pictures, they can make a video, they can draw, whatever they want to do to show me at the end what they learned. And so I'm learning as I go along.
Janet,
right? So
we just had a question pop up, and I'd love to address it right now. They're asking, are all of the things that we're seeing here on the screen, are these slides that you created with Book Creator?
Everything is built in Book Creator. every single thing that I'm showing. Even what we're doing right here in the presentation is in Book Creator. So everything you see there's no slides. It's just Book Creator. Yeah, it's clip art, it's text, it's shapes, it's embedding links, only Book Creator.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to share this because this tells me this works. As I'm walking down the hallway, this is what I see. I just peek into classrooms and we have touchscreen Chromebooks and kids are just dragging things all over the place. And we've got kids typing. And this little guy was underneath the desk because he needed to record. So I guess if he thought if he jumped under the table, nobody could hear him. But, whatever it takes. But this is active learning. All right, so we'll keep moving along here. So next chapter is my teachers came to me and they said, hey, we do this with nonfiction. We've got the fiction down. Now let's move to the next chapter. So I immediately went to Novel Effect and I started cruising through to try to find nonfiction text. And I was so pleasantly surprised because, Kathy, there are so many nonfiction text on there as well. And so I came across Elephants by Grace Hanson, and I actually noticed that this one's on Epic. So my teacher mind's kind of going crazy a little bit because I'm thinking you don't even have to buy all the books. If I can match them up with Epic, they can pull them up on their board and read them with Novel Effect. And then I'm able to put that link into Epic for the kids to refer back to it. Y'all see what I'm doing right here? So that is what has been so fun about this, because it just keeps unleashing itself to me as an educator. And the thing about it is I was able to focus in on nonfiction skills here. So they're able to use the glossary. There's questions that are asking them to use the glossary, the table of contents, all of these text features. That is also a standard. They're having to do this. And I put this video right at the beginning kind of as a hook. And this is a video that I love. It's a 360 video of elephants out in the wild. So the kids can go there and look and explore before they even jump into the learning. All right, so if we'll flip over just to another page. Later in this particular one, they can visit the link. I've linked it in there at the bottom, and they are diving for facts in this book. So they're going for the text evidence. I used a word search maker so that was an if you finish early activity for them, where they could go and grab some of the vocabulary words in the text. And I thought this was the perfect opportunity for me to link it back to the San Diego Zoo, where they have the animal cams. So they can go and check out the live elephant cam, and then they come back and make a little video on the page to tell what they saw and make those connections. So y'all hear my Southern coming out now. When I say y'all, it's getting serious. So this is just one more thing that you can do. So when I am talking a lot about elementary, but secondary teachers, this is something you could definitely use and pull it into your content area. So regardless of what you choose to put on your pages, this is the greatest part as a teacher, is when you get all of your structure added, as much or as little as you want, all you have to do is hit that share button, and you are going to hit publish online. And when you hit that, this little page is going to pop up, and it's going to ask you, do you want to keep it private or do you want it to be public? I usually keep mine private, but then it allows you to choose, do you want to turn on the remix option? And if you want your students to edit it, that is a yes. You want to turn that on. If you just want to use it as a book for them to review or read, then you would click no on that. But in this case, yes is the thing. So then you hit publish online, and then it gives you that link that you see there in that red circle. So what I do, because we work with littles, it's easier for us to get them to a place with a QR code. And so I use the Chrome extension to make a quick QR code. So all I have to do is copy that link and then tap one little button up in the top right of my computer, and the QR code's made for you. And then you right click on it, copy it, and put it on your gold coin. Pop it in the back of that book. All right. So student engagement has soared at our school. When you walk down the hallway, you might see a classroom using it, but it is not uncommon to see kids lining the hallway. So they'll be outside, some are typing, some are recording, and now it's just such a fun thing for me to walk down the hallway and see all of these different ways, because I'm going to tell you one thing, our students have taken ownership of their learning, and it's just a beautiful thing. All right, so if you'll flip one more time here, it was time to unlock the magic. All right, so remember we had this whole thing. So I appreciate Novel Effect and Book Creator, because I was able to email them and they were so cooperative to send us some swag. And so we were able to put that in this treasure chest. My principal was on board, so he contributed an iPad to kind of make it more exciting for everyone. Threw in a little bit of candy, a few colors, and you're good to go. So then I started visiting the classrooms. And after the first 4, I was like, this disappointment thing, I should have thought this out a little bit, because it's like a classroom of 6-year-olds. They just kept going, no, we're not the winner. No, it's not us. But at the same time, I left them all a bag of suckers. So they were all good. All was good in the world before I left. But if you'll flip over here, it was just such a fun time, because our teachers were scratching off. Some were letting their students put in the combination. And then if you'll flip one more time, this was the class that ended up winning. So if you want to hit play there, I don't know if you'll be able to hear the sound or not, but you will be able to tell what's happening in the background. You can see their hands go up because she says, I feel movement. And then it exploded. So they were so excited about being the winner there. And so it came full circle for us. And it was so fun. So I'm going to wrap up and tell you about a few things that we're working on. So I'm super excited about this one. This one I've got ready to roll in the fall, because I thought my teachers would say it was too quick right out of the gate to get started on this, but they were just the opposite. They were like, let's get it going right at the beginning. We want this to become a station next year. And so with this one, Kathy, I was able to pull up the soundscape on this one and read little excerpts. Listening is a skill that we are required to teach. And they are tested on that in 2nd grade. And so we wanted to go ahead and put in an option to work that in. So I was able to use the record feature and read a little excerpt of the book that calls them to infer. And so I'm reading that with Novel Effect. So when you click that play button, they can hear the Novel Effect in the background as I'm reading, and then they choose their answer from that. So I'm thinking of ways that I can go ahead and marry these two in different ways as well. All right. And then thinking a little further, I've already been in touch with some of our teachers in the older grades, and they are giving me their ideas of how this would look in their grades. I was a 5th grade teacher for 7 years and worked with 3 through 6 for 17 years. So I have a background in that older grades as well. So I want to expand that up. And this is using a picture of the day idea. Y'all probably seen this before, but this will let them look at the picture and the details in it where they can infer. And then I've started using AI to help me create some stories for listening comprehension and building that in, and then the writing component as well. So there's all of the elements of literacy that I feel like very easily will mesh into this idea. And so we're going to keep growing it. And so be watching because I've already started building some things that are coming with figurative language, text-dependent responses, poetry. And then if you'll flip, you'll see that my magic library is growing. It's got tons and tons of books on the shelf, and I've got some that the covers are done, and I'm just going to work on that this summer and try to build some more. It's a hobby to me now. It's one of those things that I love to do it while I'm sitting and watching TV. But I know that it's going to be so beneficial for our teachers and our students as well. And I've loaded some on Teachers Pay Teachers, some free ones, so that if you want to hop over and grab those, you can do that. But that library is going to keep growing because I am in love with this idea. And my teacher background allows me to kind of fuel it just a little bit. So with that, I'm going to end, and I'm going to say that I am thrilled to death. I think that David and Kathy are going to be posting some things on their websites that have some links to some free ones for you to try it out. This is one for the end of school. If you're still in school, then I want you to be able to go and give that a try with your students. And if not, then be watching, because I'll be pushing some things out on social media that will be for those first day jitters and some other things that are coming down the pipe. And then if you'll, I did put in my contact information on the next slide if they want to follow. I kind of operate under Teachers Tech Academy. I've had that for years. And my Twitter is just a little bit different, but that is how you can get in touch. And I'm constantly pushing out different things. So with that, I'm going to tap on those brakes a little bit. I know I've said a lot. I get really excited, and so I talk really fast. So you might need to watch the replay. But I am passionate about this, and I hope that you can see that come through in what I've said today. And I cannot wait till you try this out in your classroom, because you are going to be so surprised at what they will give you back. And so I'm going to end by saying, I'm so glad y'all are best friends.
Janet, you're absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing. You said, actually in your presentation, you said I could talk about this for days. And I don't know about you, Kathy, but I would totally enjoy that. Your story and the way that it came together, and just the way that you enriched all of the lessons with so much engagement and excitement around reading and literacy. Just an absolutely phenomenal story. Like I said at the beginning, I just had to get this out and share it. As soon as Kathy and I looked at it, we were like, we've got to get her on to share it out. But Kathy, do you have any questions or any comments you want for Janet?
Oh, do I have questions and comments? Oh my God, Janet. So I was writing on a piece of paper and paying attention and writing down notes as you were going along. And at the very top of my paper, I wrote, Janet is the gold standard for teaching standards in creative ways. I mean, just the engagement factor and the fun that you bring to it, not just for the kids, but for the adults. And I wrote that down too. I love that you just did read-alouds for adults. I do that too, because it's so damn fun. And they don't expect to love it as much as they do, but they can't help but just giggle. And, they hear the sound effects and they get quiet because they want to hear what's happening next. And it's hard to get a room full of adults quiet.
A funny story about that. Our principal was going around to each classroom during Read Across America, and he came to my office and he said, so I've been called out by the 6-year-olds. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I sat down to read to them and they said, are you not going to use novel effect? And so he goes, do I have an account? And I said, yes, you do. So let me get you typed up. So we hooked up his phone and he finished the day with novel effect. But the kids will call you out if you don't use it.
I imagine it's such an amazing way to read a book and to experience the book. And I absolutely love all of the work that you've done putting together these resources for teachers. If you'll notice in the chat, I posted a link to a Wakelet collection that Janet's put together. It's got a lot of different links that you can explore and look at some of the lessons that she's put together. Does that link? We have a question in the chat. And I believe it's in reference to the remix option of the book, Luis, but yes, when you give them the remix, it's going to make a copy for each student, put it directly, like Janet said, right into the teacher's library so that they can have access to it. and then each student can be responding on their own. You can also use a collaboration feature, but yeah, each student will have their own book made a copy for them just by clicking that remix button. So it's a really nice feature. I also noticed that we had someone. Yeah, go ahead, Janet. Go ahead.
So you've got two options there. You can even take that link once you've created that remix, and you can push it out through an LMS. So if you're using Seesaw, Google Classroom, whatever you choose to do, you can push it out that way, and then they just click on that link and it works. However, the QR codes, that is just something that our kids were already familiar with. We've got them on their Chromebooks, and so we can tell them to open up their QR code reader, and they've been taught to do that. We use Clever badges, so they're very familiar with that. So that's why I kind of migrated the two in that.
Yeah, I think that was absolutely a fantastic idea too, because you're talking about something that teachers already know and love, which is the book, and just having that little additional piece. Kathy, you were going to say something.
I can't help myself. So I remember back during the pandemic when everybody just got crazy creating these Bitmoji classrooms. Do you remember when that was the craze? And teachers, they wanted a creativity thing to do. And Janet, I just kept thinking of you, and I thought, I wish there was one of those like scrapbooking cruises or something that you could host and take us all on. And every week we'd all be together on a cruise.
I'm here for it.
Into books with novel effect, right? And then we would sit around in groups and create book creator activities to go along with them and inspire each other. And it would just be such a fun week on a cruise.
Kathy, just let me know when and where, and I'm there.
Yeah, sign me up too.
I love your story about the principal too, because principals are the gateway to getting novel effect in for your school, right? Or getting book creator in for your school. So if you're inviting them in to do these read alouds with novel effect, or to see these creation opportunities with book creator, that's what you do. You get them in, you get them reading, you get them involved, and next thing you know, they've got the wallet out and they're doing the PO to make sure that all the teachers have access to that. And there's just nothing better. I think it's the greatest gift you could give of all.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it has been a fantastic evening. I'm not seeing any more questions. I think we've answered everyone's questions. We've put a link to Janet's resources. You can see here on the screen Janet's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Connect with her, reach out more. And I'll put my email in the chat, Kathy, if you want to do the same, if you have any questions and you'd like to reach out to us individually. But I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have Janet and Kathy and John with us tonight. And just the absolutely fantastic stories that we heard. I think he's coming back there, John. But yes, round of applause, just all the boxes checked. So thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.